Hi guys, so now we're going to be doing the second part of solving by completing the square, which is when the a, the number in front of x squared, is bigger than 1. When it's greater than 1. So we first rewrite the equation so that it looks like this, which means we have to move the c over. So I'm going to add 5 to both sides, and that gives me 4x squared minus 8x, leave a space, equals 5. Next step is we divide by a. So that means I divide everything by a, which in this instance, my a equals 4. So I'm going to divide everything by 4. So now I have x squared minus 2x equals 5/4. Leave it as the fraction. Okay, leave it as the fraction. Next step. Now I find, take half of b, like we were doing, this is the completing the square part, square it, then add to both sides. Okay, so that's where I'm taking -2, divide by 2, that gives me -1, square it, and it equals 1. So I'm going to add 1 to both sides. So when I do that, I'm looking over here, well, that's, if I've got to add it to this, that means I'm going to change that 1 to 4/4, so it's a common denominator. So then I'm going to end up with, when I do this next part, which is factor, so this is going to become x minus 1 squared equals 4 plus 5 is 9/4. Now you should start to notice 9 and 4 are perfect squares in itself. So just remember that when we're working through this. So now we take the square root of both sides and solve. Okay, this is what we've been doing. Take the square root of both sides. Remember, this is the same as the square root of 9 over the square root of 4. All right, so now I've got x minus 1 equals 3/4, and I have x minus 1 equals, not 3/4, 3/2, because I do the square root of the top and the bottom. And -3/2. Which if you want to, you could change it to a decimal at this point, or you can just keep working it as fractions. I like to just stick with the fractions just to stay in the same scenario. Okay, so I'm adding 1 to both sides, which means this is going to be 2/2, which gives me x equals 5/2. Here I'm adding 1, which means I'm adding 2/2. So that means x equals, oh, but one's positive, one's negative. So this is a -1/2. So therefore, oh, I made a boo-boo. Starting up here. This is supposed to be a plus, 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 which means instead of adding 1, I'm subtracting 1 here. So that means this is 1/2. And here again, I'm subtracting 1 because it's supposed to be a plus. This is supposed to be a -5/2. So my answer is -5/2, comma 1/2. Could I also write -2.5, comma 0.5? Yes. Both of these are correct answers. Okay, jumping down. We're going to go to the next page, actually. We're going to work a couple of examples. Let's look at number 5. Got the most basic, the simplest one right here, even not simple because it's got the answer as fractions. Okay. So this is where we're going to have to move more than just the C. But otherwise, everything else is the same. So we need it to be where it's, remember, it's the ax squared plus bx equals c. So that means I need to get the c by itself. So I'm going to add 45 to both sides. And then I need to move the x squared over here. So I'm going to add x squared to both sides. So this cancels. It's not 45, it's 44. Ooh. At least I caught this one here. Miss Wilson's making a couple of mistakes today. Here we go. So this cancels and that cancels. So now I have 2x squared minus 24x, leave a space, equals 45. There's where my 45 came in. Brain's jumping ahead. And now we do our next part where we do the not yet, because we've got to get rid of the a. We've got to make a equal to 1. So we divide by 2 to everything. Well, no. I'm adding. Whew. Miss Wilson needs to go back to bed today. 3x plus 1x does not equal 2. It equals 4. I did get woken up today by my youngest late, so we're dividing by 4 to everything, which is now going to give me x squared minus 6x, leave a space, equals, and leave it as that 45 over 4. Okay, now we figure out my c. So I take -6, divide by 2, that gives me -3 squared. This one is minus, yes, which is 9. So I'm adding 9 to both sides, which is, this is the same as our common denominator. This equals, which is 36/4. So now we end up with x minus 3 squared equals 45 plus 36 is 81/4. We take the square root of each side, which means I'm doing the square root of 81 over the square root of 4. So I end up with x minus 3 equals 9/2. X minus 3 equals -9/2. Okay. Now we finish up. So I'm going to add 3 to both sides. If you want to, we can figure this out, and 2 goes into 9. So this equals 4.5. This is going to be a negative 4.5. So it might be easier to add the decimals this way, but it's your choice. So this is going to be x equals 7.5. I'm adding 3 here. So this cancels, and we get that x equals negative 1.5. So my solutions are negative 1.5, comma 7.5. Ooh, must set builder notation. Gotta have those solutions in that little notation there. The mountains and valleys notation. Okay, this is what the x equals. All right, last example. This is where we won't end up with something that actually ends. It means the decimal does not end. So it's when it's an irrational solution, decimal does not end. That's what it means for it to be an irrational solution. Okay, so we do the same process that we've been doing. So I'm going to subtract 22 from both sides. Now I have 2x squared minus 16x space equals negative 22. Got to get the a to 1, so I divide everything by 2. So now we end up with x squared minus 8x equals negative 11. So now I've got to find my completing the square. So I have negative 8 divided by 2, which is negative 4 squared equals 16. So I'm adding 16 to both sides. So now I have x minus 4 squared equals 5. So we take the square root of each side. So I'm going to have x minus 4 equals the square root of 5, and x minus 4 equals the negative square root of 5. Okay, we keep going because I've got to get x by itself. So I have x, no, stop. So I add 4 to both sides. Those are not like terms, so I can't add them. So I end up with x equals 4 plus the square root of 5. Add 4, so I end up with x equals 4 minus the square root of 5. And this is where we plug into calculator and round to hundredths. So again, here it says simplify. We're changing round to hundredths at the end. Okay, so here we go. Now we plug in. Grab our handy dandy calculator. And I'm going to just do 4 plus second square root 5, enter. And we have that x equals, we're rounding to the hundredths, so I'm looking at the 6 to see what I keep the 3 the same. So this is going to be 6.24. Now second enter just retypes it, and all I got to change it to is a minus and press enter, and I have that x equals 1 point, the 3 makes the 6 stay the same, 76. So my answers are 1.76, comma 6.24. you have any questions, please make sure you ask. Otherwise, finish the notes and then you work on the assignment. Have a great day.